This could be the weirdest saw you've ever seen for woodworking. It is a table saw / miter saw combo, but can it do either one well? That's my question when I saw this Franken saw. I've never seen anybody review it, so I took a gamble on it, spent my own money. We're gonna find out. Is it worth it? Or is it just weird? So we'll see how it performs. We're gonna put it through the paces. I wanna show you all the features that this has, and it does have quite a few. And I just so happen to have a couple of contractors here doing some home renovations for me. I'm gonna let them real world react to this thing and see what they think. If you'd like to check out this saw or anything else you see in the video today, link in the description and the pinned comment. Now, a few weeks ago, I reviewed the Evolution table saw, and it is absolutely amazing. It's probably one of my best picks for those that are on a budget or looking for a small table saw. It has that sliding table feature. It also has that out feature support. It's an absolutely genius job site saw, but it sold out very quickly thanks to the outlaw effect. Will this be the same way? We'll see. If you don't know what Evolution is, they've been around since the 1990s. I think I was like in the 8th or 10th grade or something when they started. They've been around a while, but they were in the UK, and now they're starting to bring their tools to the US. This is one of the next evolutions of table saw / miter saws. I have my doubts, but let's find out. All right, out of the box, it's well packaged, which the Evolution table saw was also well packaged. You have a small box that's going to include a very small fence. We'll see how this works out. Also a push stick, a clamp, a couple of handles, random handles. I'm assuming I'm gonna have to assemble that somewhere, and then the blade. There's also the blade guard / riving knife, and also a dust bag. Not sure why the blade didn't come pre-installed. Should have, but more work for me. There was also 4 random bolts laying in there. I would assume they should have been in a bag or something, but they're just laying loose. I think they go to the handles on each side. I've already figured this out. I didn't have to read the manual, although I actually did read the manual on this one because I don't want to screw this up and be in the Franken saw and all. I put one handle on using my DeWalt Allen key set, and then I actually realized that there was a onboard tool storage here that includes the Allen key that you're going to need to change the blade as well as put those handles on. Now, installing the blade was not my favorite thing to do. It comes with a spanner wrench, and a spanner wrench just has 2 bolt things that you stick on there, and then you have to take the Allen wrench. Like, it was a little cumbersome. And then the blade guard, I accidentally messed up and didn't put it inside the blade guard, had to retake it off and then back on. Yeah, not a fan. As stated in the previous video of the Evolution table saw, not a huge fan of the multi-material blades, although I think they have a place. If you're cutting plastics, metal, aluminum, wood, and you just need a multi-material blade, this might be the way to go. Evolution does have wood-specific blades that will fit this saw and any of their other stuff. If you went this route, I would probably pick up an extra blade specifically for woodworking. The instructions are not very clear. Evolution should do better on their instruction manual. It just kind of describes some things and says to, I don't know, it's just not very clear at all. And I've had to figure it out. Now, one thing that really did give me a little trouble was figuring out how to set it up in table saw mode from miter saw mode. Here's how you do it. There's a lever on the back that literally lets the motor go from raising the blade up down far enough so that it can be a miter saw. Then on the back, there's another little lever that you push or pull, and it unlocks it so that it goes straight up. That's not the problem. The problem is getting it back to table saw mode. Again, instruction manual, not clear. What you have to do is push this button, which is the safety switch for the miter saw. Once it goes down, you use the back lever back here to push to lock it. It's still not in table saw mode. There's that other lever up front in front of the motor right behind the trigger switch that you're going to switch, and it's going to move the motor up. Here's where I thought things would be different. This blade is a one height fits all. So there's no raising and lowering the blade like standard table saws. You get what you got. And then from there, good luck. But it may not be a terrible thing if you know what you're getting and your limitations of the tool. We're going to find out because we're going to put it through the test. I am not a fan of these style of table saw fences simply because of how wiggly they are. This one though, at least they give you markings on the top if they're accurate, and you can line those markings up and then clamp down your clamp so that it's set at the same spot on each side. We'll see how accurate that is. For the riving knife, again, not real clear. The throat plate, far as I could tell, doesn't come out easily, and I had to figure this. The manual just doesn't give me clear instructions. It just says 2 Allen keys, loosen those and tighten them back up when you install the riving knife. They're actually here on the side. Use the tool that come with it. You loosen those, stick the riving knife in there and tighten it up. Riving knife, blade guard, all made into one. If you want to remove the blade guard, you can. Not that that's a big deal because you don't have a whole lot of cut depth here. Not gonna be using any crosscut sleds or miter gauges or anything like that on this saw, unless you built one. You could build one, theoretically, that rides on each side, kind of this table, but you would have to account for the motor being there. The only other setup, on the very back, there is this bar that slides out. That's a stabilizing bar for the back. If you don't have that, I guess they say it could tip or something. It just gives it a little bit of extra feet on the back. Let's go over the features of this saw, and then we're going to take it out and put it through the test and see if it'll cut anything, how accurate it is, and we're going to let those contractors give it a shot and see their first reactions of something they've probably never seen before. We'll see. First impressions, it is a lightweight little saw. Call him mini-me. It's like a little mini table saw. If you're in a very, very small space, apartments, very small garages, or you're having to take your tools in and out, this might be a viable option for you, especially if you're wanting to get those miter cuts and then also have a little bit of rip cut capacity on the top. And I say a little bit because we got about 6-ish inches of rip cut capacity. That's not a ton, but if you're just ripping small strips, this might be the way to go. As far as build quality goes, first impressions, again with the Evolution table saw, everything was really nice. Same thing here, everything feels nice. Although it's a very, very small saw in a very compact package, the fit and finish is good for the price, in my opinion. It's not cheapy feeling or anything like that. So I am happy to see that. Now this is a transforming saw. It will transform from a miter saw into a table saw as stated. The way it works was a little confusing, and the manual is written a little poorly as far as how to do this. It should have step-by-step instructions, better, but it don't. So in table saw form, the way you operate it is power button on the left, stop button on the right, like any other table saw. Pretty cool because on a miter saw, you have to use that trigger. So I'm glad they have basically a dual power on-off switch here. This does also come with a clamp for your miter saw to clamp down your boards. I actually think this is gonna work. We also have 2 dust ports here, one right there on the front, right opposite of the trigger, and then also one right here on the back. I'm assuming table saw mode will use that one, miter saw mode will use that one. First power up, what should we do, miter saw mode or table saw mode? Miter saw mode it is. She's a little loud. There ain't no soft start either. It is go or no. Before we let the contractors have their go at this, first impressions on cuts. There's a couple of things here that impressed me and a couple of things that I wish was better. All the dust come out of the back, so I'm not sure what this dust port's for. Maybe that's for table saw. But that's a cut on walnut, and that multi-material blade did a really good job, surprisingly. First, the dust collection in table saw mode is absolutely fantastic. It is better than any job site saw that I've ever used, so it's very impressive. In miter saw mode, yeah, it's a miter saw. It's not horrible, it's pretty good for what you're getting here. I still think that a lot of this being enclosed and things like that, especially with this blade guard up here and everything, it just helps with the dust collection, so it's fair. I wouldn't say it's amazing, but it's also not Delta Cruiser level terrible. As far as cuts in miter saw mode, I tried plywood and I tried a piece of walnut. As far as cut depth goes, about a 2x4, maybe a little more than that. There's actually a screenshot I'll throw up here of what's inside the manual of the capacity of this thing, but you're not gonna be cutting much more than a 2x4, which may be all you need. I'm cutting 3/4 inch stock here. It cuts the walnut really good, like a really good finish. I think this blade, it looks exactly like, although smaller, the one that was on the Evolution table saw, but this one cut really well, but I'm also doing cross cuts here, not rip cuts. So as far as cross cutting the walnut goes, did fine. Plywood, very the same thing. Pretty good cut too, even on the bottom side. A little bit of fraying, not terrible, but a little bit. Pretty solid. However, I did notice that they looked off angle. They didn't look like they were 90-degree cuts. So when I checked it with a square, it was out of square, locked in at that positive stop of 0. You can't adjust your indicator, but you can adjust the positive stop. So even when you adjust that, so the positive stop now it locks in at 1 degree, and you have to move it off the positive stop to the 0 to lock it in, then I got square cuts. But getting it squared up isn't without a little bit of challenge because of that blade guard there. It's a little hard to see in there. Not impossible, but you can square it up. It just won't be, at least on this one, with the positive stops. Much like the Bauer miter gauge that we reviewed, that the positive stops were off. This one is too, which is a shame, and I wish it could be adjusted because most miter saws, if you don't know, on the top where all the markings are with the degrees, you can loosen bolts and move that so that it actually lines up to the positive stop. This is not the case. You can move the pointer to get everything squared up, but you're not going to be able to move those positive stops, so you won't be able to trust those if yours is off. It may not be a deal breaker since you can square it up, and I got good square cuts here. Rip cutting plywood, I found something very surprising that I was not expecting, but I should have. This thing will move. It's so lightweight. I mean, it only weighs probably 25, 30 pounds or so. Like it's so light. When I was pushing my plywood through the cut, the thing started sliding back so much so that I was getting a little nervous. And if it don't feel right in the gut, don't make the cut. So I stopped, got some clamps, clamped this thing down, and then finished the cut. It cut the plywood good. Like, there's plenty of power there to cut the plywood. I'm not a fan of these style push sticks. You know, if you watch the channel, you know that. It doesn't matter what saw they are coming with. I don't like these because they, over time, have the tendency to get brittle and can, if they hit the blade in the right conditions, it could shatter and cause injuries. I just don't like them. So I'm using the bow push stick here. I much prefer that, or something like the Gripper, or even the Mousecraft Grabber Pro. Some type of other push block other than this is what I would prefer. I'll drop a link to those in the description, or you can use this one if you so choose. Now let's see what the contractors think about this thing. This should be fun. All right, this is Tucker. Tucker, say hi. He is a contractor who is doing some renovations. I'm gonna let him, what do you think about it? React.
It looks,
like, be honest, 100% honest.
Huh. So on this, the blade, how do you lock it?
Careful, we'll turn it on. So let me show you.
This will turn it on?
Yeah, it's not intuitive. Well, this will.
Yeah.
It's not real intuitive, right?
Okay.
Because, like, I think it should just be one button to switch it. But the way you have to do it is, of course, that's your regular miter saw lock. You bring it down, you have to push a button back here on the back, on this back side. That locks the table. Okay. And then you have to pull this little switch, which raises the motor / blade. And so as far as the table saw goes, you can't raise or lower the blade. It is a one cut only, one thickness only, one depth. That's it.
That would be my only downfall as far as the depth.
Yeah.
Because
you're only looking at maybe a 2x4.
And as far as putting it back, you just kind of, I don't know, that's kind of, I feel like you really need to know how to work it.
Yeah, it's not, it took me forever. So you had to pull this back to drop the blade back,
okay.
And then pull this one again, and then it goes back up.
I guess the next thing is how's it cut?
Yeah, here's your safety glass.
All right. Huh. Okay. Man, this is... You know, I like it. I like how it cuts, but yeah. Honestly, I don't think if you had, you know, normally when you get like help or something come in, I don't think this is a saw that you should really say, hey, go out there and come in too. You know?
Yeah. All right, so if you were going to rip a piece of plywood, the fence, check the fence out. Let me know what you think about the fence, and then also when you get ready to cut, here's a push stick to finish the cut.
And so I just turn this on.
Yeah. So the power switch, you know, for the miter saws here or here, you could actually push
that's what I don't like. I wish it maybe the
one
switch or one switch. Like if I press this, I should be able to, because I was really, I guess, it threw me off whenever I was trying to press, but I felt like I wanted to press both at the same time. But as far as this goes, kind of cuts funky.
Well, I'll give you a little context. So they ship this with a multi-material blade. So it's actually made for metal, aluminum, wood, or plastic. And that's one of the things that I fussed about on the table saw review, because I think it should be a wood blade, and then if somebody needs the other material blades, they should get it, because most people getting these saws are going to be cutting wood.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a do-it-all saw, but at the end of the day, this isn't somebody that this isn't something I would just go and hand a beginner at cutting something. But
I don't think it's meant for a professional. It's probably meant for more of a DIY. Somebody in a garage, maybe need to cut a piece of plywood here or there, maybe a 2x4 here or there.
Definitely, yeah. I think it's a good concept. I think it'd be something cool to keep in your truck, I guess, or a trailer. But as far as breaking it out every day, I don't know that I would. I don't know that I would do that. But
I think the thing with me is I think it was, like you said, a good concept. I just don't think it was executed well, because it's not very intuitive on how to use the switch. I think it's going to be one switch that goes from miter saw to table saw. Like pull one lever, drop it, and make it happen. And then on the power switch, like I did the same thing. I was trying to push the button, I was trying to pull the trigger, and I was like, which one does what? It is. Like
yeah, that's the only thing I don't think that.
The only thing that's, let's see.
I don't like how many locks.
I know, that's what I was saying. It's weird. The only thing is in miter saw mode, that power button won't stay on, so you can't keep it.
So it's essentially there is one there. Right. I guess if you wanted to do
you
it,
could push it with your thumb.
Yeah, every time. But then you still.
Yeah, you have to unlock it and then push the button.
Yeah. It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool to say, I guess you got it, but.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think this thing had a lot of potential, but I think it falls short in several ways. And there's a lot I do like about this, but there's a few things that I don't like. First, what I like. I like that it could be a potential tool for someone in a very small shop. Maybe you only do projects here and there, and you just need some way to rip a small piece of plywood. And I say small, I mean narrow. And then, of course, having the cross-cut and angle cutting capacities there. It's a neat idea. I like that option. The dust collection was really good. And as far as cut quality goes, it does cut pretty good for what you're getting here. And I do like the form factor being kind of small if you're in a small shop or you're transporting this around. However, there's a lot to be desired. Much like Tucker said, if he's got an employee working on the job, would he send him out to use this to cut boards with? He says no, because it's so cumbersome and hard to figure out. And I think that's the main drawback of this. There's just too many steps to convert it, and it's not intuitive. Not that it's difficult, it's just not, at first glance, how do you flip it from one to the other? I think it should be just one flip knob that you use to do that with. I think it's probably some safety regulation somewhere that requires them to have both the trigger power button and the push on and off button for the table saw. Now the table saw button will only work or stay on in table saw mode. If you have it in miter saw mode, you can push it, but it won't snap into place. I think that's probably a safety feature, which I think is probably a good idea here. Another drawback here that Tucker brought up off camera was sight on the blade to your piece of material. On any other miter saw that I've ever used, including the Festool, the DeWalt, Makita, anything that I've used before, Skill, you can see the blade as it's coming down toward the cut. On this one, you cannot because the blade guard. So you would have to move the blade guard out of the way, make the adjustment, and it's very difficult to do with one hand trying to do all that. That's a very big drawback in my opinion. This blade guard should operate just like every other one. As the blade comes down, it kind of moves out of the way. The reason it doesn't is because when you change it to table saw mode, this completely still covers the blade on the bottom side. So I think they had to make a lot of compromises to make this work. As far as miter saw goes, I really wish it wasn't off in the detents. It's kind of a bummer that it is. And then with the table saw, I don't like this fence at all. I don't think this is a good fence to have on any table saw. I don't like these style fences. It's a personal preference, nothing against anyone who likes them. I just don't. I just don't think they work well. I think the rack and pinion fence is the way to go. Adding that on here, I don't see where you could because of how it's designed. It just wouldn't work with the rack and pinion. And there's really not much here as far as cross cutting goes. This table saw it's not well executed. You can't raise and lower the blade. So you're only on one size, and it's barely enough to cut a 2x4 thick. So even if it cuts the 2x4, It's mainly for plywood and sheet goods, and at that, even narrow pieces is all you're going to get out of it. So who's this for? I think this is for someone who is very rarely cutting anything, and especially just like miter cuts and things like that. Not going to use the table saw much unless it's for very small pieces, although on Evolution's website, there's multiple 5-star reviews on this saw from people who absolutely love it. So I think there is a market for it. I just don't think it's for woodworkers or contractors or someone who's going to be using this day in and day out. It was such a neat idea. I wanted to love it so much, and I just don't. And I don't actually recommend it for woodworkers. If you're looking for a solid table saw, look at the Evolution. They do make a fantastic table saw. The Skill is an amazing table saw. DeWalt, any of those style if you're looking for this price range or budget level table saws. And if you're looking for a miter saw, then check out the Skill miter saw, DeWalt, Festool. You know, any of those top brands are going to be really good. They even have a Cobalt sitting right there, future reviews coming. But as far as combining a table saw and a miter saw, just didn't work out this time. But it could be for you. Let me know in the comments if you would buy this. If you like this video, you got to check out the Evolution table saw. It is seriously good and extremely impressive. That's why I bought this, because I thought this would be impressive too. Click in that box to get you the big old Versa fist bump.